So, episode 5 of season 3, Say the Word, picks up pretty much where episode 4 ended, with Rick lying on the ground and them all out in the courtyard grieving over the ones that they've lost, and they now have the new baby who still doesn't have a name. And Herschel's like, let me see the baby, and he wants to make sure the baby's okay. And he says the baby's okay, and Rick goes crazy, and he goes back into the prison, and he just starts, like, killing every single walker in sight that he can find. And he's shooting them, and just going back to my inconsistent with, hearing, by shooting them in the complete, concrete prison in, the corridors, he should have deafened himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's, like I said, they really should have just had some deaf characters later who went deaf from firing their weapons without ear protection for so long, for years and years and years.
We do have a deaf character and a character who's going deaf, but
but there should have,
that's not from the circumstances of the apocalypse.
I think it would have been kind of interesting if somebody I don't know,
Carl.
Yeah, if Carl had lived, that could,
So back at Woodbury, this is Andrea and Michonne are still at Woodbury.
Mm-hmm.
And Michonne does not trust it there. She doesn't think it's good. She's really suspicious of the governor because, they came back with some military equipment, and the governor said, oh, we found, it was already overrun, and we just, we had to kill them. They were walkers. And she's like, there's a lot of gun holes in this, and she finds some blood, and she's questioning him, and he's like, you'd be good on our research team. And she keeps telling Andrea, this is no good, we need to leave, they won't let us leave, blah, 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 blah. And they're having, a little festivity, a little party.
Yeah. And they're, drinking drinks with ice cubes in them and stuff, and, Andrea's like, look at these cold drinks, isn't this cool? And, Milton's like, yeah, I don't know if this is the wisest use of the generators, but I guess the governor thinks it's the best thing to do, and, similar to Herschel's farm, I mean, it's been almost, well, I mean, not almost a year, but it's been 8 months, possibly 10, after the farm. So it's actually worse here. They have more resources, but at the same time, I just find it a bit convenient that these communities with generators are able to just keep getting fuel indefinitely, and there's seemingly no, okay. In I think it's the same episode where they're we gotta find baby formula for the baby, and it's everything's been cleared out. There's no freaking baby formula in any store. They have to search and search, and they have been looking, in anticipation.
Yeah.
And almost all the supplies have apparently been picked over, even though they're it doesn't really seem like there's enough survivors for all of the household supplies to have been consumed by this point.
Well, do you think it was people panic buying when it started?
Well, that's true, but then they should have died and shouldn't have had enough time to consume these resources.
Right, but they're probably just in their houses.
But they've been looking, because when they've been on the when Rick's group was on the road running around in circles, they were gonna eat dog food before Rick foolishly threw it away because he has some kind of issue with eating dog food.
Right.
So clearly, I'm just where did these resources go?
That's a good point.
Thank you. I'm willing to overlook that because it's people were just grabbing stuff and
paper.
And panicking. Yeah, exactly. Like toilet paper and last summer. Yeah. No, exactly. So okay, but apparently there's just tons of gas everywhere
that they can use for the generators.
Apparently it's really easy, yeah. And on Herschel's farm, they were not really conserving their power all that well. They just left porch lights on all the time, and they just, it didn't seem to be an issue. Didn't really seem like they had to conserve their fuel. But somehow they're just able to just, like, because I mean, okay, sure, like the Woodbury people are going out and looking for it, but at the same time, they shouldn't just have unlimited gasoline. Like they should be running. If things like baby formula are this hard to find, why is something as useful as gasoline so easy to find? Apparently.
Well, and you made a really good point that like gas only lasts between like it can start going bad at 6 months, and like it is bad after a year.
Generally speaking, without any additives, which they've they wouldn't they wouldn't be using at this point.
So we know that this is like 8 months since the farm.
Mm-hmm. So like maybe a total of 10 months since the outbreak began.
Okay. So it's been 10 months since the outbreak began. This is like day 303-ish, so around 10 months. So this gas is either already bad or it's about to be bad, but they just seem to have unlimited amounts. Just no
because and it's not like they're infrequently running the generators. Milton said like, I mean, he was like complaining to the governor, saying like, oh, I've been running this experiment. I need the generator. Please don't use them for these festivities, like, because it'll interrupt my experiment. And the governor was said, oh, it's okay. Like you can always restart it. So it kind of makes me think that they've been like using their generators a fair amount. Yeah, it's not like they've been strictly. And they're willing to use them for fairly frivolous things like ice cubes. Yeah.
So while these festivities are going on, and Andrea's like distracted with the governor and how great Woodbury is, Michonne decides to do some snooping, and she sneaks into the governor's, I guess, apartment.
Sneaking, I am sneaking in Woodbury. That's what she's singing to herself during
and she finds his notebook, and it has, like, a bunch of names in it. And then Penny is, like, underlined with, like, a bunch of exclamation points. And then the pages after that, it's just, like...
Oh, I think... you mean... Okay. Like, and then you mean, like, the, like,
there's
the
just,
hashes,
like, slashes. Like, hash,
hash,
for, like, page and page and page. And that's supposed to indicate to us that he has gone crazy after Penny's death.
Like, he was recording people who died, presumably like in his groups or his, the community if it was formed by then, and then Penny died, and I mean they don't make it clear. Like, I'm curious what you think, because I think there's two possible interpretations of it, where it's like okay, because he's recording names, and he's sane, and then Penny dies, and then he snaps. And then after that point, it's just like everyone who dies, like he stops seeing them as people, and he's just like noting how many people like he died / he killed, and I mean I think that's probably the more likely, but like is it also possible that that's how many people he's fed to Penny?
My gosh.
I mean, and that's probably not the case, because there's a ton of them, so that's probably
honestly
not right.
I didn't see it as either of those.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was like he stopped keeping track because it didn't matter anymore, and just like out of like being insane, he just like filled the notebook with lines.
Sure, like from The Shining kind of a thing.
Yeah,
where he's just like repeating.
Right,
yeah.
right. Because
and
they're not
that's
like
certainly possible.
they're not like
no, you're
like
right. He's not
down.
like
They're like not horizontal. They're diagonal.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I thought that was just like him going crazy, but those are really good interpretations. So those are just like addition. I mean, and it's pages.
It's a ton. It's like hundreds of people.
It's not like all the people he has killed, but I guess it could be.
It's probably just like total deaths. But yeah, I mean, that would be a lot of people if it was people that he'd killed. Yeah.
So at the top of the list, we see Brian, Bobby, and Nick.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he tells Andrea, I think in this episode, that his name is Brian.
Philip?
Oh, dang it.
Oh, no,
right,
that's okay. I think
right.
it was like the previous, or no, maybe the one before. It was either the previous episode or the one before that. But yeah, where they're drinking.
Right.
And then he's like,
we see Brian, Bobby, and Nick, and his name, we don't get this from the show. This is backstory that we know from the Governor books. His name is actually Brian, but he kind of snapped once his brother Philip died, and he took over Philip's persona. And
Yes.
so I guess he's thinking that, like, he's Philip and his brother Brian died. And then Bobby and Nick were two of their friends that were with them from the beginning of the apocalypse. And so we see those, and so that, like, it's a really cool that, like, they show...
Yeah, it's a good reference.
Yeah, they reference the books, and you read that the actor...
Yeah.
He actually read these books before he started this character to try to get in the mind of Brian / Philip / the governor.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, those are good books.
They're really good.
Oh, let's see. Okay, so then basically, like, earlier when they were having their ice drinks, Milton was like, oh, we're gonna have some very special stuff going on later. And Andrea was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, oh, mere words can't describe the festivity, which I think is like, okay, well, I think, you kind of oversold it.
Yeah,
like, oh, it's just Merle and Martinez, like, pretending to fight each other in, like, a gladiator match.
Yeah, and it's
surrounded
all
by, like,
fake.
toothless walkers. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's, because, they're just pretending. Like, I think they decided Merle would, like, win beforehand. It's just, like, professional wrestling.
Yeah, but Andrea's, like...
Yeah, she gets kind of...
She's like, it's
disturbed
barbaric.
by it. Yeah, she's like, it's brutality.
Yes,
Later
that's
on,
right.
she's like, it's brutality for fun, and I think this world's brutal enough, and I mean, it's just like... But... would she have the same reaction to professional wrestling just because... they're, like, pretending to hit each other with chairs or, pretending to choke each other and stuff like that? It just seems a bit silly because it's so tame. Like, there's really, like, they're not really fighting. They showed Merle and Milton gathering the walkers earlier from pits and, like, in a net, and they took their teeth out. And so, like, there's no danger. And so it's just like, like a pretend fight to, like, entertain the townspeople. And it's just, like, I feel like she just has to, like, complain about everything.
But it's also really obvious, like, from her reaction that she starts liking it. Like,
Right, yeah, and I think the governor says that. He's like, yeah.
There's no shame in liking it.
Yeah.
And so, one last thing back at the prison, Rick did find... the walker that presumably ate Lori.
Lori's entire body.
And,
which
like,
is really kind of like,
its
they
abdomen,
shouldn't have done that.
Its abdomen is, like, very swollen. Its abdomen looks pregnant. But we know that
God,
it's not Lori.
Was that intentional?
I mean...
That'd be funny.
I mean, obviously it's not Lori because Carl killed her so she wouldn't become a walker.
Right. Yeah.
But this, like, walker's just, like, on the ground and he sees Rick and he, like, reaches up, but it can't move because it's so heavy because it ate all of Lori.
Yeah.
And he shoots it. That's when he should have deafened himself. And then just, like, stabs the crap out of it. Just, like, taking out his, like, rage and, like, mourning out on the walker. And... so then he's in this, like, this weird room that there's just, like, random stuff.
Yeah, later we see that, look, there's, like, random, like, machinery, and there's, like, an old-timey telephone, and there's, like, tapes, like, around the telephone, but there's, like, a wash basin underneath the telephone, and what looks like a cooking wok or something next to it. Yeah, this is a strange storage room.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I guess they just tossed any random crap in the prison into this room. It's kind of strange. And so I think it's interesting. We were talking about the walker that ate Lori. Like, is it because the prevailing idea seems to be that it is, like, so full that it's just, like, doesn't have the will to, like, attack him or anything, to attack Rick. But, like, also, we were thinking, it could be so heavy with flesh that it's, like, too physically weak to, like, get itself up.
That's what I thought it
Yeah,
was.
like a turtle on its back. Like, does that happen to a walker when it eats too much, where it's just, like, it can't stand up? That would be kind of interesting.
So Rick is just in this, like, this random weird storage room going crazy, and the phone that's in there rings, and he picks it up, and that's where the episode ends.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird cliffhanger.
It is a weird cliffhanger. So episode 6,
Hounded.
Mm-hmm. So in this, I think it was in the last episode, Michonne decides to leave, and Andrea stays, and Michonne
because she was like, they won't let. Michonne was like, they won't let us leave. There's always a reason. But then Merle was like, okay, I guess you guys can go. And then Andrea was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna, because she was willing to like see if they would let them leave. But then once it appeared that they would, she was like, oh, okay, I want to stay here.
It just made Michonne look crazy.
Yeah.
So Andrea decides to stay, which is kind of terrible to do to Michonne, because Michonne has protected her for the last 8 months, like when Andrea got really sick.
Yeah.
But Michonne goes out on her own, and so Andrea's back at the camp, and she wants to pull her weight, and she thinks she's such a badass, so she wants to sit on the wall and help defend them against walkers. She basically wants to do what she did at the farm. Just sit on top of the RV and do nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so Michonne's in the woods, and the governor sends an army.
Merle and like 5 other guys.
To go after her. And she like sends messages like go back, like using walker parts and stuff like that. But so back at Woodbury, Andrea is up on the wall talking to this other girl and talking about like, I lost loved ones too, and it's really hard, and then a walker is coming, and this girl's like, watch this, and pulls out her dad's bow and tries to shoot it, and like shoots it in the shoulder, and she's like, watch this, and she tries to do it again and misses again. And Andrea just like, she just thinks that she has to be so cool all the time. And so she's like, I got it, and jumps down off the wall and goes and stabs it. But she just has to like show off all the time. She has to think that she's the best at everything. Just like you said, like when she shoots Daryl, because...
Yeah, because she's just trying to show off all the time. And she seems to think that she's the best at everything, and... She's kind of arrogant, and she just feels the need to like, she won't listen to anybody. She always wants to be cool. She always wants to do the badass thing, and regardless if it makes a lot of sense. And and she tends to, and then like when she, like, or much earlier, but when she was fighting with Lori about like wanting to do guard duty and stuff, and like she's like, I think it's the way that she goes about things that makes people irritated with her. Like, she's like, oh, you just don't want me to do anything important. And, and it's like, well, I mean, God, you're kind of being like, you just kind of have to, you just have an attitude about everything. You just have to, like, complain about everything and, like, do stupid stuff, like needlessly jumping off the wall and going to stab it just because it's, like, cool and fun. And, she just kind of wants to, like, have fun all the time doing, like, dangerous things. And, she's kind of annoying.
So back in the prison, they're kind of, like, taking it easy, and they're asking Carl what he wants to name the baby.
Ugh,
and he's like, oh, we could name it Sophia or Jackie, or I don't know if he actually says Jackie.
No, I think so. I think he lists every dead female member
Amy,
of the...
or even Lori, or Carol, and, like, he's just thinking of, like, every dead female that they've known, which is not what he ends up going with later, which is really funny.
The name he ends up choosing is pretty random,
And, Daryl's like, she could be a little ass kicker.
Ass licker,
Ass kicker.
Liquor. She was suckling on the bottle when he said that. Think about it.
It's not. Oh my gosh. And Glenn and Maggie go out to try to find supplies, especially baby formula. But, like, there's not a whole lot going on in the prison because it keeps going back to Rick, who
everyone else is just like, well...
Right.
Yeah.
Rick's, like, supposedly talking on the phone. And he's like, where are you? And they're like, we're safe. We can't tell you though, because we're safe because we're careful. And they're like, tell us about how your wife died. And he's like, I'm not ready to talk about that. And so, like, whoever's on the other end of the phone keeps hanging up, and he keeps freaking out. And so back to Woodbury, Merle and his guys are, like, hunting Michonne, and she keeps defeating them, basically. Merle does shoot her in the leg.
Yeah.
And the governor said, like, when he sent them out, that he wanted her head and her sword.
Mm-hmm.
And, so, like, she does kill several of them, and then walkers kill some more of the men that are with Merle. And then Merle actually ends up killing the last one, because he's like, well, she's not gonna make it on that. Like, she's hurt. She's gonna die. So we're just gonna tell the governor that she died. And the man that's with him is like, well, we can't lie to the governor. We have to tell him the truth. We have to go get her.
Because Merle convinced him to, like, continue pursuing her after the rest of them were killed. And it's like, so, like, Merle talked him into, like, not giving up, but then Merle wants to give up not long after that, and so then he kills that guy.
Right.
Neil.
But Michonne does get away, and she actually, like hears Glenn and Lori at,
Maggie.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, no,
Glenn
that's
and
okay,
Maggie,
yeah.
Sorry, at a shop, and they're like, oh my god, we found the baby formula jackpot. And she knew that Lori was pregnant from Andrea's...
Oh, yeah.
From Andrea's story. And then Merle also finds them. And he's like, is my baby brother alive? And they're like, yeah, he is. And Merle's like, take him to me, and we'll call all of this even from you leaving me out there on that roof. You like my metal hand? I made it myself. And they're like, we'll tell Daryl that you're here, and he'll come out to you. And he takes Maggie hostage, and he takes her back to Woodbury, or I guess Maggie and Glenn.
Right,
And he takes them back to Woodbury and tells the governor, like, we killed Michonne, but we were ambushed by walkers, and I don't have her head or her sword because of the ambush. Like, 2 other guys had those, and they were taken down. But I got 2 prisoners, and they're from that Atlanta group that I knew, and they know my brother, and they know Andrea. And so, I guess that's kind of the end of what we see there.
Yeah, let's see. And then
Michonne picks up the
and then
basket
like
of
Rick's
baby formula.
this is, I think Rick's story ends in this one where, like, where it turns out that he's on the phone.
Right,
where he's talking, yeah.
Yeah, so on the phone, like, originally he was talking to Amy, and then Amy hung up. Like, so these are, like, dead people, and he's just totally hallucinating all of it. And then he's talking to Jim, and then Jim hangs up, and then he's talking to Jackie, and then Jackie hangs up, and then Lori is the last person that calls. And it takes him quite a while to figure out that it's Lori, and that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, he should have just heard it and be like, Lori? Like, right away. Like, if you've been married that long, you've gone through all of this together, like, I think you would just know each other's voices, like, right away. And Lori's like, you gotta take care of Carl, and you gotta take care of our baby, and so he kind of snaps out of his delusional state.
Yeah.
And goes back out into where everyone else is, I think in the courtyard again.
Yeah, either that or in the cell block. But yeah, wherever they are, like, hanging out, and then he's like, holds his baby.
Yeah, he holds his baby. And at the very end, he sees Michonne at the fence. And so he gives the baby back to Carl. And he's, like, going down to see, because she's, like, carrying a handbasket of formula. But she's, like, walking amongst the walkers because she's covered in their blood.
Yeah.
And that's where episode 6 ends.